Hey, 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 and goodness to you. And I always say goodness because I don't know whether you watch it in the morning, the noon, or the evening, but it's all good. Put a good in front of any one of those, and you're going to be feeling pretty good. All right. Look, I'm Sporty King, and welcome to Glue Wednesday. Glue Wednesday was born in 2017. I'm just getting on here a little earlier to do my shout outs before I start the broadcast at 1 on the dot here on the East. But it started in 2017 when I looked at the fact that people so often called Wednesday hump day, which was old school because we'd say you work Monday to Friday and then it was the weekend. So we didn't even think about flex time, right? So Wednesday was hump day. And just because I love to play with the vocabulary, the vocabularic word, I always say control your vocabulary. Don't allow your vocabulary to control you. And so in the process, I decided, hey, we don't need to hump because hump means get over. We don't need to get over. What we need to do is keep it together. And so that's why I decided instead of calling it hump day, I call it glue Wednesday. Because Wednesday is the middle of a traditional 7-day week, regardless of when you work, that keeps the week beginning and the weekend together. So it puts me in my favorite pose of a prayerful pose, and that's the glue, keeping it together. And so that's the glue, GLUE. That's God love. God's love undoes everything. Not that it will tear it apart, but that what is undone will be brought back together by supplying and applying God's love. And God's love is coming from where? It's coming from inside your heart. So it's a decision that you get to make as well. And meanwhile, what I've done is during the pandemic in 2020, what I did is I took Glue Wednesday and I expanded it to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And to keep myself going with coming up with topics, I said, let's use the alphabet. And each letter, each topic would be based on a letter of the alphabet. And people would give me words from that letter of the alphabet, and I would create the message based on using those words. So from A to Z. And so that's why I called it the GAS, the GAS series, the Glue Alphabet series. So every week people would I'd tell them what the letter is going to be for next week, and they put words in the thread that begins with that letter, and I would get them into the broadcast the following week. So then I call them my co-authors. We've got less than 2 minutes for today's message. Maybe we need glasses because that looks like a 58. Yes, it does. So anyway, so that's what I did. And so I decided to bring that back this year, even though I dropped Wednesday and Friday as glue days. I changed those into Wednesday as the Monday morning moment. And Monday is the Monday morning moment, and Friday is Gift Friday. So those are different types of messages. So stay tuned and check out and find out how you can enjoy my messages, which come to you at a time and a place when you need them to. And you can do it on your own time as well. But so I've kept with the Glue Wednesday alphabet series. And right now, oh my God, we have been going on with using the letters A through Z. And then it dawned on me that, wow, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so what I did last week was I took us off the path, even though I kept us on the path. Let me say that, by the way. Last week, my letter was S. But I didn't make the message have anything to do with the letter S, which it doesn't always anyway. I decided, since it was the last Wednesday broadcast in the month of May was Mental Health Awareness Month, that I would make the message be about mental health awareness. And then what I did is I talked about a session that I had created, and I'm going to talk to you about it here. It's called My Piece of the Puzzle, or Puzzled. And it was a session that I had actually created for Natick Army Air Force Base in Natick, Massachusetts. And I created this session for them. So what happened was, at the beginning of the session, as everybody came in, they got a business-sized card that had one of the 5 letters in the word puzzle. As you can see, there are actually 5 letters in the word puzzle because the Z gets duplicated. And as they went through, I said, well, our session today is I'm going to take you through the word puzzle. Each one of them got one of the letters. I said, that's your piece of the puzzle. That's why it's my piece of the puzzle or puzzle. What don't you know about suicide prevention awareness, or is it about suicide itself as well? That's what makes it the prevention awareness. What don't you know or do you know that makes you a piece of the puzzle? And so when we get to their letter, I would, ask for words beginning with that letter and move it into the research, as well as I had put the presentation together using the letters and finding words to put in there based on that. And so that's what I did. And so we had a lot of fun doing that. So last week, what I did is I said, well, let me bring that back. And we used three of the letters in the word puzzle. We used the P, the L, and the E. And I got those into the message last week. This week, we're going to use the final two letters in the word puzzle, and that is the U and the Z. So I had asked for and now I was going to say subscriptions, but it's not subscriptions. What's the word? I almost said it again. But anyway, I asked people to give me words beginning with the letters U or the letter Z, and I would work them into today's message, which was still going to be my piece of the puzzle. Submissions, there was the word. My piece of the puzzle or puzzle. And so I did get three words from and I call them my co-authors. So that would be Ramona Hopkins, who gave me unpredictable and zeal. And Victor Morris, I wrote his name twice. Victor Morris, who gave me a word with the letter U, and that word was understand. Now, today, I'm not going to be as interactive in the group if you come on in person and live, because as I start putting this together, the more I put together, the more I found that I couldn't leave out. And so I've got my interactive part. I'll ask you some questions toward the end, but I'll give you a lot of statistical, factual stuff, because I think it's stuff that we need to know. Because think about it. Yeah, you are a piece of the puzzle in helping prevent suicide. You're also a piece of the puzzle in helping promote suicide. And promote, let's use it both ways. Promote as in you may help someone make the decision to take their life, as well as help them make the decision to not take their life. So that's what I mean by promote. You can drive somebody to the end. Let's not be in a vacuum and act like that doesn't happen. You could be the last straw, not even knowing it. But even with that, though, still most people, when they decide to take their lives, they have decided it. You just might be who they decide to use as that pushover. You don't know. We don't get to interview them. Okay. And that's where I think it's so important for us to lift some of that judgmentalness that we have in our society, which is why I decided to bring this in during Mental Health Awareness Month, because we have to recognize that suicide is a mental health condition, a treatable one, which we'll talk about as well as we go through the process. So I'm going to start with the letter U. And understand, because I want you to know that most of my facts and research today are from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP, whose data is taken from what is the latest CDC, Disease Control and Prevention, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC report. And for over 25 years, American Foundation of Suicide has been committed to preventing suicide by increasing public and professional awareness of suicide as a mental health issue and a public health problem. When researchers carefully examine suicide deaths through a psychological autopsy, which is talking with family and close members, okay, so that's what they're saying. It's we can prevent suicide by increasing public and professional awareness of suicide as a mental health and public health problem. And when we carefully examine suicide deaths through a psychological autopsy, what we find and what we know from the research is that 90% of those who die by suicide had a diagnosable mental health condition at the time of their death. See, we can't interview the people who take their life by suicide, but we can interview their family and friends. So we find that the finding is that 90% of those who died by suicide had a diagnosable mental health condition at the time of their death. Among adults with a diagnosis, by the way, 43.8% of them did not receive mental health services in the last year. And 73.1% of the United States did not have enough mental health providers to serve residents in 2020, which we see that kind of makes it, wow, yeah, the pandemic cut down on services available. Why? Because there was a higher need for services. Interesting, right? And that's according to the federal guidelines saying that there weren't enough services per person. In 2019, the most recent year for which full data is available, 47,511 Americans died by suicide, which I first became aware of. When I first became aware of this as a disease and researched it for that presentation, that number was 41,149 in 2013. At the time, that was the most recent data. So that's an increase of just under 6,000 people. And then, as in now, that made suicide the 10th leading cause of death for Americans. And on average, there are 130, oops, I went too fast. Okay, wait, let me go back. Okay, there we go. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, okay, it's sliding on the bottom, the ticker. I'm trying to read the screen and the data. Okay, but suicide, the 10th leading cause of death for Americans, and on average, 130 suicides per day. On average, 130 suicides per day. And this is all while, according to a 2020 Harris poll, it said that 93% of the people think suicide is preventable. So imagine that we're averaging 130 suicides a day, even with us thinking that suicide itself is preventable. I'll take one breath here and say a shout out and hello. What's going on, Roger Carroll? It's good to see you. I mentioned before you got on, and to people who will be watching the video would know, I'm going to be slightly a little less. I'll come back to questions at the end because I want to get all of this information out because it's so interesting. And then I'm going to have a Q&A, true or false, toward the end that really get some things going on in the chat and the feed there. So thank you. Welcome aboard. All right. So where were I? Yeah. Okay. So Harris poll, we got 92. Okay. So that's understand. Where is that? Okay. Well, let me get back. Okay. All right. So 92% of people think suicide is preventable. Meanwhile, part of our understanding is in the words that we choose. See, we have to understand suicide sometimes in the words we choose. Remember, I said we can be the tipping edge, which can sometimes sound harsh or judgmental, even when we don't mean for them to sound judgmental. For instance, the term suicide is actually best used to describe the act, but not the person who died in that way. You see, nobody wants to hear that their loved one's life was summed up by the circumstances of their death. It's best to follow the lead of those who have been affected by suicide when talking about this sensitive subject. So while we may hear that someone has committed suicide, many would prefer, and if you would rewind, you'd hear I've been using the terms died by suicide or taking their life by suicide. Referring to a person as someone who died by suicide or as a suicide decedent is actually less offensive. And what we have to remember that suicide is never a success. You will hear even newscasters sometimes they say it was a successful suicide. Suicide is not a success. So I hope you can see what I'm saying is that we have to understand part of our understanding must be in the words that we choose to describe the act, not the person. Suicide is never a success. And another U word that I want to introduce us to is uncomfortable. See, uncomfortable. Suicide, like death, can be hard to talk about. And that's what part of the challenge is. But when we understand, we can take some of that discomfort away. Many of us grow up with the belief that people who take their own lives are crazy, selfish, or have some kind of a moral defect. And I know you've heard that people say, well, that was selfish for them to take their life. Judgmental, I mentioned that earlier. So many of us grow up with the belief that people who take their lives are crazy, selfish, or have some kind of a moral defect. As they understand that suicidal thinking and behavior is a result of a treatable medical condition, people become less fearful instead of, less uncomfortable and more able to do what? To listen to a person in distress with empathy and without judgment. See, not deciding that this person is crazy, selfish, or has a moral defect. Let me listen with empathy and without judgment. So, noticing the signs can actually be the opening, moving that discomfort away. And how can we do that? Well, we can better understand through talk. Through talk. What might someone considering suicide talk about? Here are 5 examples. They may talk about killing themselves. They may talk about having no reason to live, seeing themselves as a burden to others, or feeling trapped. Feeling trapped, which is we're hearing a lot of people talk about in the pandemic, or dealing with unbearable pain. Now, I'm not saying that if anybody comes up with one of these topics, you can go, oh my God, this person is suicide. No, no, no. We're not walking around with a microscope on one another. But these are some things that you can hear based on the tone. Think about how your conversations go with that person. And you can see, are you having a discussion about this situation? Or are they sounding like they're talking to you about a solution to something that they're doing? Are they making it sound like, you know what, I need to kill myself? Is that's a solution because, I just have no reason to live because I'm such a burden to you. I'm stopping people from getting ahead and I'm just feeling like I'm trapped and I can't do anything about it. And I just can't take this pain. I put it into all one sentence, but it's not easy. That it would be, if they would say it that way, wouldn't it be so much easier to recognize and have something to do about it? But it doesn't happen that smoothly. So I'm going to talk to you later about one of the things that we must be conscious of doing. And I can mention it to you now, and that is forgiving ourselves for not seeing the signs. How come I didn't catch that? It's not easy to catch. It's not easy to catch. So I'll come back to that. So please know and forgive yourself that you will not catch any or all of the signs. You will, and let me turn that around. You will not catch all or even any of the signs. But hopefully this video and your curiosity will open you up for a couple. So then there's the letter Z. And Z is the last letter of the alphabet. So sometimes people who want to end their lives by suicide think that they have no other option. So that's why I say, you think that when I'm at the letter Z, I have no other options. But as we know, after you say the alphabet, when you're teaching a kid the alphabet, what do? You have them say A to Z, and then you do what? You have them start over when they get to the Z. So it's a mindset. One of the things I used to do when I was in sales management, I would always tell my staff that we were on plan A. And then when that didn't work, I say, hey, we're on plan B and then plan C. And then I go through the alphabet. So they would say, well, what letter are we on today, Sporty? Because I have you've heard me talk about change. I love change and I believe in it. And if something doesn't work, I don't have a problem moving on to the next thing. So they just said to me, Sporty, what letter are we on today? And they learned to crack up and laugh at my letters. And they said, what are you going to do when you run out of letters? Because I'm up to plan M by now, right? I said, well, you know what? When we run out of letters, then I will just start numbering the letters. We would be on plan A1 and 1A and B7, okay? Bingo, all right? But that's what I would do. I would just come up with another letter. Z is not the end. And that's what we have to help people know. You are not at the end. You have other options. So I'm going to use 2 other numbers today. And I'm going to give you 2 words beginning with the letter Z. And one of those is 0. Because when we think about the end, you think it's 0. Of course, financial hardships can lead to drug and alcohol abuse. That's what 0 sometimes is recognized to finances. In medical news today, I read a study that appears online in the American Journal of Epidemiology indicates that Financial strain is a significant risk factor for suicidal ideation and suicide attempts. The researchers also warned that due to the current pandemic's impact on economies, suicide attempts may become an even greater worry in the near future. So, zero is a word we have to beware of. Zero also means, actually, in the military hour, stating at which time an event is supposed to begin. When you use military time, say, well, we're going to be starting at 0800. That's 8 o'clock. See, that's when I put this program together, and I was dealing with the military audience. That's what I said to them. I said, hey, when you hear the word zero, excuse me, that doesn't mean you're out of time. That means it's time you got a fresh start. So that is the mindset. And this is why I say every day on this side of the ground has got to be a good one. If I wake up as the same person I lay down before I went to sleep, perhaps I never went to sleep. You've heard me say that before, I hope. But zero means start over. It means that you get a chance to start over. Control your vocabulary. Don't allow your vocabulary to control you. The next letter, the Z word, is zeal. And zeal is an eager or ardent pursuit of something, enthusiasm or passion. And it's a word that we'll hear more as an extension of itself as the root of the word zealous, zealous represents a diversity in the number and types of people or environment who need to work together and be together to keep one another alive. And so that's what I think is important, that we've got to work together. We've got to have that enthusiasm and passion about working together to keep someone alive. So, do a little, I mentioned your curiosity, but take a look at American AFSP.org, is American Federation of Suicide Prevention's page. Take a look and see some things. And if you've had suicide in your family or someone who's talked about it, or I'm what's called a suicide suicide remorse, survivor's remorse. And that I had a coworker who took her life by suicide. And so when that type of a thing happens, sometimes we say, oh, what could I have done different? Why did they go, not me? If someone saw someone get killed next to them, and now that's a little bit off the topic there. So let me come on back. But suicide, survivor remorse is something that people have sometimes when they try to figure out, why did this person take their life, and what could I have done differently, or what did I miss? And remember, I said earlier, forgive yourself. You're not going to catch all the signs, and you may not catch any of them. But everybody, that's the piece of the puzzle. We have to all be together. But if you find out a little bit more information, that might be just a little bit that we need. So here we go. Now, I got in a good amount of stuff. So I guess I went faster than I thought, because I got a lot of stuff. But here's where I want to do a little bit of interactive. I want to use some true or false questions. Okay, I want to use some true or false questions to walk us to the close of today's topic. So whether you're living, where's my thing there? Whether you're whether you're live on, or you're watching the video, I want you to put a T for true or an F for false in the feed. So let me see. What's going on, Vic? So we got Victor and Roger Carroll right now. You're my two that I know that are on live. And I want you to put a T for true and an F for false in the thread as I read I got 5 questions that I want to ask to see how much you know about suicide prevention awareness. Okay? All right. So the first one, true or false? The presence of risk factors guarantees a suicide attempt. The presence of risk factors guarantees a suicide attempt. So what are risk factors? Think about it. Somebody owns a gun, they got knives, okay. Hey, what's going on, Kevin? Okay, we got 3 people. So give me 3 answers in the thread. True or false? The presence of risk factors guarantees a suicide attempt. Kevin says false. Vic and Roger Carroll. And by the way, if you are watching the video, please also add your T or F before I give the answer, because the time I take just waiting for these answers during the in-person broadcast, you'll still have time. So it won't be a spoiler alert where you can say, "Oh man, I should put yours in," because what I want us to do is, sometimes learning is in confirmation, affirmation, as well as not knowing. So getting the answer wrong can help you learn, but getting the answer right can help you learn even more, because that's what I call catching people doing something right. See, when I get it right, I'm feeling more encouraged that I got that right and I can use it again. Okay. So come on, Roger, Carol, and Vic, where you at? True or false? All right. The presence of risk factors guarantees a suicide attempt. And again, if you're watching the video, put your T or F in there as well. So now I got to wonder if they just had their video on and they moved and they kept moving, because that happens. We know that happens with people. All right. So I'm going to have to decide that and move on. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, thank you. There you go, Vic. So Kevin and Vic have both said false. Roger Carroll, you still there? Roger Carroll, are you still there? Okay. All right. Okay. But meanwhile, the answer to the first question is yes, they are correct. That is false. That is false. The presence of risk factors does not guarantee a suicide. Why? The operative word here is guarantee. See, it's guaranteed. In 2019, firearms accounted for 50.39% of all suicide deaths. Still, one of the keys is what we discussed last week in our military acronym of ACE, Ask, Care, and Escort. That's the Ask, Care, and Escort. And the C stood for care, meant remove any means that could be used for self-injury. See, so if you know someone has the gun, you see they have the knife, and you think that, so you remove that. So that's why it's false, because you can't guarantee, just because you have the risk factor there doesn't guarantee a suicide attempt, because you have the opportunity to move some of those things. But meanwhile, also realize that suicide was one of the leading causes of death for all military branches in 2019, 1.5 times higher for veterans than for non-veterans over the age of 18. Okay. So it's definitely an important factor in our military environment, but let's not act like it's not a problem in our civilian environment as well. Okay. Second question. Suicide occurs most often during the holidays. True or false? Suicide, T for true, F for false. True or false? Suicide occurs most often during the holidays. Okay. Thank you, Kevin, with a true. And by the way, if you're watching the video, and Vic with a true, by the way, if you're watching the video, there's also a delay in where I'm taping using StreamYard. There's also a delay in how I see the answers come up on the screen in Facebook. So that's also a part of why you've got time to answer, even if you're watching the video, okay? But we got Kevin and Vic both said that is true. All right, and they're going for two because they have false on the first one. They say they're going to go for as true on the second one. Check this out, though. That answer is actually false. You see, actually, the holiday season has the lowest suicide rate of any time of the year, not the highest. The highest suicide rate actually occurs during the spring and the summer. So contrary to popular belief, the risk of suicide does not increase during the holiday season. What happens is it gets more publicity during the holiday season. Why? Because people are busy being more connected with the family holiday celebration, and there's a more festive mood. And so I think psychologically, the hit of a suicide death seems like 5 people when it's 1. So actually, it does, and now even flip that coin. The family camaraderie and things are going on during the holiday season gives a nice positive atmosphere that sometimes pulls somebody out of their ideation. So that's interesting. But check this out. During the 2017 to 2018 holiday season, nearly two-thirds of the publications mentioning the holidays and suicide in the same articles falsely link the two. So that's another place that where we're getting that from, is that we're getting, the media is saying that suicides they increase during the holidays. We're reading it. You've always heard me say, choose your messengers carefully. See, a messenger does not have to just be a person. It's the source. It's where we get our news from, where we get our information from. So that becomes extremely important. So great. I'm glad y'all had that one. All right. So we have to see that as a myth. Okay. Next one. Females attempt suicide more than males. True or false? Females attempt suicide more than males. And if you're just coming on, we're doing true or false facts about research, because sometimes the research is factual, but it has room for change. And so if true or false, and even if you're watching the video, I want you to put your T for true or your F for false in the thread, because then the time that it takes to get them all in, you get a chance to get your answer. That Vic and Kevin are staying together, boy. They staying together. This time they have both said that statistic is false. This time they say it's false. The females attempt suicide more than males. Remember to control your vocabulary rather than allowing your vocabulary to control you, and listen. And because the fact is, it's actually true. It's actually true. All right. The age adjusted suicide rate in 2019 was 13.93 per 100,000 individuals. Based on the most recent Youth Risk Behavior Survey from 2019, 8.9% of youth in grades 9 through 12 reported that they had made at least one suicide attempt in the last 12 months. Female students attempted almost twice as much as often as male students, 11% versus 6.6. And in 2019, men died by suicide 3.63 times more often than women, while females were 1.6 times more likely to attempt suicide. You see what it is men use more violent means. And there you go. And Kevin and there you go. The men's, even though we said earlier, don't say suicide is not a success, but men are more likely to complete the suicide. There's the terminology that we use. And you got it. They use more violent means. Women may be using pills more often than not, whereas men are using firearms. And so that's why seeing the understanding, and Vic, that was your word, was understanding. So thanks for giving us that word. That's why we have to understand. And there's where we're also talking about the listening. And so we can't understand if we don't listen. Listen to the question and then shape the answer. I'm not saying either of you didn't listen, but that's why you choose your messengers carefully, because you got to, manipulate what they're talking about. It's attempt more often than male. Okay. And that's great. So yeah, a lot of the time, most of the time, and check this out, most of the time, people who plan suicide do not give any advance warning. And that takes us back to that letter U, and why and how hard it is to read the signs. So yeah, it's very difficult to read the signs and to even get that statistic right, because it comes from we don't think about that, women taking their lives more than men. Well, because they don't. They attempt. All right. And so let's link that to the next question, which is difficulty in a difficulty in a personal relationship or increased alcohol use are common warning signs in suicide. Difficulty in a personal relationship or increased alcohol use are common warnings in a suicide And I had an emergency text that I just had to look at, y'all. So where was I? Difficulty in a personal relationship or increased alcohol use are common warnings. Remember, we're talking about warnings in suicide. Okay? True or false? Difficulties in a relationship. And so now we're not talking about what people they could be talking about it, but also, these are some warning signs. And Kevin says that's true, and Vic says that's false. For once they've split. All right, so if this was a game show, one of you would be going home with the prize, or at least moving ahead by one, right? But this is no prize. This is no game show. This is real talk, man. And we need to love. And meanwhile, in this case, Kevin gets the T because it's true. It's true. This, according to the CDC, estimates that 42% of all suicides are related to relationship problems. In other words, in 2016, 18,900 people died by suicide for reasons that included relationship problems. I want to give you a look. I want to give you I'm going to give you a look at people who took their life by suicide who had no diagnosed medical condition. I want to give you a look at that. Look at that. Well, it's hard to see. It's hard to see unless you get real close, okay? All right, let's see if I can get words out of the way, okay? But what that graph says, it says 42% based on relationship, 28% based on substance abuse, 29% past or upcoming crisis in the past. Oh, in the past, the upcoming 2 weeks, 16% were job or financial related, 22% physical health problems, 9% criminal or legal problems, and 4% loss of housing. So isn't that interesting? 42% of all suicides are related to relationship problems. Those are based on the people who have not been diagnosed with a mental health awareness issue. Hey, what's going on, Martha? We've got one more. Nope, that was my last true or false question. So that's what we were just now doing, Martha. We're going through some, let's get Martha's hello in there. Yay, we got to get to see my girl, Martha. Good friend from way back. And then, and like I said, I'm going to come back actually and talk to y'all when it's over because we got time. All right. But I want to close on that statistic because we're now seeing more communities opening up. And as mentioned, many people are figuring out how to deal with opening up. Okay. And so that becomes important. And look at the number of incidences. People are coming out now. Look at the number of incidents that have strung together of fans disrespecting NBA players. But yet, while you look, what I will also want you to do is look at the bright side. The bright side that shows how many people ganged up or pointing out the guy in Boston who threw a water bottle at Kyrie Irving after the game. See, that's what looking for the bright side is all about. Yeah, this fan threw a water bottle at Kyrie Irving as the Nets were walking off the field. And when security and everybody turned to look, instead of people looking the other way, they were like, him. And see, that's what we have to start looking for is how people bond together versus finding how people instantly go their opposite ways. It's not everybody. We can't make this without everybody doing their part. So that's why I say look for that positive thing that everybody pointed to them. And then we may also begin to have patience. Check one, and may we also begin to have patience, check one another, and then take personal responsibility. Even as we have compassion for Naomi Osaka, and thinking about her withdrawing from the French Open, and bringing different light to mental health issues. See, when a celebrity does it, it's helpful. That's why I thank our young celebrities, because at a young time, they're in their 20s in a lot of cases and taking on these causes that people in their 40s will hide behind. Okay, but I'm not beating up anybody. Let's just say, but she's an example of the pressure that these young people can put themselves through. Here's what she wrote. I'm going to take some time. Oh, she said, so here in Paris, I was already feeling vulnerable and anxious. So I thought it was better to exercise self-care. I don't always tell you, take care of yourself. I thought it was better to exercise self-care and skip the press conferences. And she went on to say, I'm going to take some time away from the court now. But when that time is right, I really want to work with the tour to discuss ways that we can make things better for the players, the press, and the fans. That's sometimes what we have to do. So, as I did with the letter Z, I want to now take her comment and use Venus Williams' suggestion for controlling your vocabulary and your mindset. Venus Williams said, for me personally, how I cope, how I deal with it was that I know that every single person asking me a question can't play as well as I can and never will. So no matter what you say or what you write, never light a candle to me. That was the mindset Venus went into the interviews with, and that's how she deal with it. And then she closed by saying, that's how I deal with it. But each person deals with it differently. Each person deals with it differently. Next week, we're going to get back to the alphabet and take a look at dealing with it differently by using the letter T. And I've actually already chosen what my message is going to be next week. Next week, my message is going to be they versus them. And you can believe that those are acronyms. They versus them. I want you to tune in and hear about the difference between they and them. Because how you deal with them and they will be handled differently by each of you. So let me go in and just say some things to you in the thread, because I certainly thank you. Again, Kevin, where did I get you? Kevin, thank you for coming on and enjoying the broadcast. I appreciate you. All right, what we got? Martha, I gave you that shout out. Okay, thank you, Vic. It was great to see. Yeah, sometimes you want to see statistics and facts because it makes a difference in how you address situations. Because we have to get our information and then we have to pass it on. Because think about it, if there's something that you don't know about, then that means what? That somebody else doesn't know. Don't clam up. Don't clam up. Share that information. And yes, cheers for Naomi. And so many athletes are coming out and supporting her right now. Our athletes are kicking butt, y'all. You got to really go back. We just finished having the anniversary of George Floyd's murder. And think about what the WNBA, they rocked it. I mean, they dedicated their season to Breonna. Was it to Breonna Taylor? Did they do? Okay, I'm rushing fast and then plan to say it, but I think it was Breonna Taylor that they dedicated the season to, and the NBA, they were wearing it on their sneakers and then on their jerseys. These athletes are beautiful. And now there's so many of them are supporting Naomi, and great. Yes, I support Naomi. Thank you, Martha. Yeah, we have to do that. And there's the athletes doing it too. Venus is doing it. Steph Curry has already come out and said that he would. Kevin, always a pleasure, my brother. Thank you. Drop a word with T in the feed like Victor already did. He dropped the word thanks. I'm going to get that in the broadcast next week. And then Kevin, thanks so much for sharing this. It's so important. Yes, thank you. You know it. Absolutely. And that's the thing. We've got to share the blessing. One of the blessings that I have to be conscious of is that because of my contract with the military, I get to step into the military world. And I don't take that for granted, but you know what? That makes part of my responsibility is sharing what I learned in that world and educating the civilian world. It's not as different as we like to think it is. If you think about it, our military is comprised of volunteers. It's National Guard and Reserve primarily, and they have civilian jobs, so they're not as strictly. There's a whole separate dedicated active component in our military, but the majority of it's volunteer. And so therefore we need to recognize that these they got one foot in and out. They're still civilians. And we've got to find ways to educate the complete civilian world on what that means to have a foot in and out. There's a lot of different things. So we tend to think about suicide, and in fact, the military has a catchphrase called Catch 22, and I'm with a group in South Carolina called Buddy Check 22, because the average is that the 22 up to 20, from 20 to 22 military veterans take their life each day by suicide. Remember earlier I talked about 130 a day is the United States figure, and 1.5 times as many are veterans. Okay, so we say 1.5 are military. They're not necessarily veterans. So it's 20 to 22 veterans take their life a day by suicide, and that's why we have the Buddy Check 22, which on the 22nd of every month I check in with a group of soldiers and airmen in South Carolina. We have a Facebook group. You're not invited to it. It's closed, I think. But I just want you to know I do it. What are you doing? That's what keeps me compassionate and passionate about it. What can you do about it? You can do something. You have an important piece of the puzzle. Please take the information you've learned and share it. Share the video, but because the video does not say that I am the authority, it links you to some of the authorities: the American Federation of Suicide Prevention, the CDC, that Medical Times article that ESPN, I think, but the Medical Times, that's where I got the article, the comment about, I think that's what I got on relationships. Okay, so, just link any topic that you want and then see how it's impacted by suicide or mental health issues. But, whatever your topic, get a little bit of research in there. Okay? So have a great day, everybody. Thank you, Vic. That's always a great way for us to close things. Kevin, and Martha, if you want to get a letter in there with the letter T, and then you watching the video, I'll get you in and make you my co-authors next week as we talk about they versus them. Thank you for enjoying and sharing Glue Wednesday. Take care of yourself, and I don't care whether or not you've gotten a shot. I know I've already been to stores where it says if you've been vaccinated, you have the option to wear a mask or not. I choose the option to wear my mask still, because there are people who have, this is not, measles, we got to figure it out. No, we are still figuring this thing out, and we are on a stage where we found a semi-solution. We don't know the recidivism of what's going to happen. So I am still wearing my mask. But let me tell you that I have new compassion, and I hadn't thought about it, for the people who are working in the stores who have to keeping that mask on for all of those hours. I agree, that's tough. But come on, y'all. Us who just are going in and out of the store, wear the mask. I just say wear the mask. So thank you, Kevin, for tremendous for next week. You got your first shot. Good. Get that second one. April 5th, I got my second one. And Martha, T. I should put a T, but no, put a whole word in there, Martha. What happened? Your finger stop typing? Put a whole word in there so we can get you in. Or I'll just have to say Martha gave us the letter T as her submission for next week's message. All right, y'all. Over and out. God bless you and stay safe. Ciao.